Hi and welcome. This time around we're taking a look at another lighting product from Vevor. And this one is purely decorative, but you know me and lighting products, I've just got a thing where I'm in love with them. If you ever saw my flashlight collection, maybe you'd understand the insanity that, well, I'm sharing with you. So this is a product from Vevor. It is a lighting strip set for decoration around a business or a home, probably mostly a business. 103 feet of LED modules, 50/50 surface mount, 3 LED RGB color changing LEDs. They say it's indoor, but then they emphasize how waterproof it is, so I'm really confused about that. They also show images of it being installed outside, so again, don't understand that, but maybe that's to get rid of their liability. This kit, in order to use it, requires a bit of work on the end user's part. So there's strips of LEDs, and my understanding was they're not all going to be in series, that if you want to add them in series, you've got to do it yourself. Let's take a look. Let's see if we can get this stuff out of here and sort of evaluate this kit. This LED light string kit, it sells on Amazon right now for 60 bucks, which is an amazingly low price for this many LED modules. So it's a really good price. However, there are a bunch of caveats. So I started looking at the manual just to see what they had in here. And Vevor manuals are better than 99% of the Chinese manuals I've used. They have very good English translations. They tend to make sense for the most part. One thing I noticed, this is the 200 module set. So there's 23 LED modules in each one of these strings, and there's 10 strings in this set, so that's 200 of these modules. That seems low, but I guess it is. I guess it could be 10, because that's what it's supposed to be. But then I'm reading the fine detail here, and if you want to use more than 80 of these LED modules connected together, the power supply that's provided, which is only 5 amps at 12 volts, which makes it 60 watts, is inadequate for more than that, and you have to provide a separate power supply. And they're saying you need to buy that, and they've got a model that you can buy. Getting a 12 volt high current supply is not a problem these days. You can get that on Amazon as well. I don't know if this thing will control more than that. That's a whole nother problem. So what they recommend doing is taking each one of these strings, and you notice there's wires out both sides. Rather than daisy chain them, they recommend running 12 gauge wires and attaching each end of the strings to 12 gauge wire. That way, you only have to feed, the voltage drop is going to be worst in the center here, but it's being fed from both sides since it's just one big giant parallel string. That's an interesting design choice. They're saying 50,000 hour life expectancy, IP68 waterproof. So they go to all this trouble to talk about how waterproof this is. I can see it's conformally coated in here. Looks like it's potted in silicone. So they're fairly waterproof, but then they say indoor only, and I'm not quite sure why. This power supply, you'd probably definitely want to keep dry, but it's only feeding 12 volts, and 12 volts is low voltage and less likely to hurt you. It seems like a better choice for this would have been to go to 24 or 48 volts, so that the same current, a 5 amp 48 volt supply, probably could feed all of these, or pretty close to all of these. That might have been a better choice, in my opinion, but they sell sets with, you know, more or fewer of these modules. I just don't understand why you sell a set with so many modules, but with a power supply that only can feed a fraction of them. That's kind of weird. And you won't know that until you purchase it, because it's not on the Amazon site. So that's really odd, I think. They do come with interconnect stuff here. So you got a Phoenix connector on the end to start, and then you've got these little interconnect modules designed for 12 gauge wire, which is nice. And they're instant, you know, they're spring-loaded connections. However, if I was going to use this outside again, I don't think I would go for that. They come with a screwdriver for the Phoenix connectors, which is kind of nice, and some electrical tape, probably to go over these guys. But I don't know how I feel about that. The IR input on this guy is inset, and so you need to be fairly close to this, and you need to be line of sight because it's inset, so it's going to block light from other directions. They're claiming that it's good up to 1 meter, which means you need to be pretty close to the setup to use it. Each one of these module groups comes preloaded with double sticky foam-based tape on the back, but you need to cut them apart with a razor blade. That saved them some work in manufacturing. Plus, they're attached to these PVC bases that you could also screw in individually. Adhesive over time tends to give up the ghost, so it's a nice choice to offer the screw options as well. You could put these under rafters or around windows. These really would be good for something like a business if you wanted to have it light up and display things in your business at night. You've got an IR remote control, and since these are RGB, you've got a ton of different colors, plus a bunch of different options for, you know, going through various color combinations and all that sort of thing. So they're pretty nice that way. Again, I think it's really weird that the supplied power supply can only power 4 of these modules. It seems really weird that you would send it that way. Plus, you also need the 12 gauge wires that these are going to attach to. So these attach to a bus. Like, you can't daisy chain this. The output of one can't go to the next because I think they're saying the drop is too significant. So they give demonstration in the manual of how it needs to be wired. And basically both ends of this need to go to a bus of 12 gauge wires. Like I was saying earlier, that way the current can be fed from both sides of this array. So the maximum voltage drop will be in the middle because of all the IR loss, that's resistive loss as you go through these. And so that'll make an acceptable drop in the middle relative to the outside. If you only fed from one side, then this side would be the lowest, and apparently that would be too significant because they kind of insist that you connect both sides. So that's kind of neat. It's an interesting idea, but I think the price makes this all by itself pretty amazing. But again, why do you sell a set that you can only power 40% of the set if you go and buy some 12 gauge wire yourself? I think that's really odd. I'm going to try and fire this up, just powering it from one side here, just so we can see what the LEDs look like, because I think that'll be interesting. But not, it's not going to be the ideal solution, and I'm not quite sure why this wire's here, but in any case, let's just hook it up and see what it looks like. As I was starting to take the stuff out, preparing to wire it up, I noticed the plug, the AC cord that came with it, goes from 2-prong, which is hot and neutral, no ground. It goes to a 3-prong, which has ground, and this power supply probably wants ground, and for safety's sake, switching supplies should probably have a ground, so it's probably not a good idea to ship a 2-prong cord with this. It does have a 12-volt in on this side, but it also has room for that external power supply. And I'm going to take a look in the manual and see if you use both, or if you use a high wattage external supply, you just feed this side with the Phoenix connector, which is what I'm guessing. So you can take these off, wire it up, and then plug it back in if you want, if you have to replace the module. So they pre-tinned the wires, but I had to remove that and strip them myself so that I could attach both ends together. And now I see why you need to feed both sides. Look at this wire gauge. I don't know if you can focus on that, but I bet you this is 30 gauge, 28, 30 gauge. It's incredibly small. So that's why almost no current carrying capacity. Each one of these I think the LEDs are 0.74 watts for the whole thing. And so when you get 20 of them, you've got just like 15 watts. Anyways, I cut a couple of these apart so that I could fold this back on itself, and I'm going to try and hook this up to the Phoenix connector just so I can see what one set looks like. It's kind of crazy. I don't have any 12 gauge wire handy to hook up a bus like they're suggesting, so we're going to make do. All right, so we got them connected, and we've got both ends of the string connected to the Phoenix connector and powered on. That is quite bright. So we can go through an array of colors, although the remote is challenging to use. So there's red, green, blue, no green. As if I'm missing, oh, because one of the wires fell out. These are very fine gauge wires. Let me fix this. All right, trying this again. There's red, green, blue, then shades of red going to yellow, green, green going to shades of I don't know what that color is. And blue going to violet. Different warmths of white, and so although that's pretty dark, these are very bright. There's white, that's very, very nice. Then they've got do-it-yourself. They've got quick patterns, slow patterns. Let's see if we go to auto. That's switching. Cycling through all the different patterns. And then flash, fade, fade between colors. That's a common one, visually very pleasing. That's fade 7, this fade 3. This is probably 3 seconds, and the other one's 7 seconds or something. I don't know, something like that, I would guess. And then you can dim the LEDs or make them brighter. There's maximum brightness. So the output of the LEDs is pretty fantastic. They're very bright. No complaints there. So let me give you my final take on this. First of all, it's weird selling a kit that's a kit and having it very incomplete. The Amazon webpage for it, it does not say that you're going to need to buy a bunch of other accessories to make this work in your standard operating environment. So you're going to get it home and you're going to find out, damn, now I got to go buy another power supply to feed additional high current 12-volt source in this side. Plus, I need to buy a bunch of 12-gauge wire, because the way it's shipped, in the pictures, it looks like all the wires are available, but no, they're not. You definitely need to buy the 12-gauge bus wire so you can connect all these together. Also, in your plans for mounting this, when you look at this, you know, these individual little modules with the wires coming off it are pretty small. So it seems like that wouldn't be too much, you know, too challenging. But the reality is when you throw 4 12-gauge wires, you know, running parallel with all these strings, that's going to be, you got to have a lot more space. You got to plan for that. I think it's really weird that Vevor went to all the trouble to make a really cool kit with everything you might need, except not everything you actually need. So I think that's a problem with it. I also have a problem with the fact that this is a 2-prong plug going to an AC adapter that's expecting 3 prongs. Switching supplies need that ground for safety, and you definitely should have it. The quality of the LEDs, by the way, this remembers last state when it was turned off. So, you know, that's why I unplugged and plugged it back in. It's continuing with the cycle it left with, which is nice. If there's a power failure, it'll come back up on its own. You won't lose that feature. Comes with an IR remote, which is pretty amazing. Strangely enough, it didn't come with a battery, and I didn't see one in this kit here. You know, typically the Chinese stuff, they always provide the battery. That's a small quibble, but again, you're selling a kit, so you kind of expect to take it home, hook it up, and be ready to go. With this, you're definitely not there. So I'm going to give it a thumb sideways, because the quality's reasonable, but you're definitely missing some features. It also would be nice if they used a heavier gauge wire for these and didn't save the money, so that you didn't need to hook up both ends of the string, that you hook up just one end, because that's twice the number of connections, and that's kind of a pain. So I think it'd be better if it was just one connection per string of 20. And it would even be nicer still if they'd make a really long string and you could just hook them all up with one end. That would be really, really nice. They'd have to use much heavier gauge wire here, and I get why they didn't. It's expensive, and you know, it doesn't include the flexibility of wanting to cut these apart and hook them up in any order you want, because you can hook these up any way you want, which is a nice feature. But you got to know that if you want to use it as sold, you're still going to have to provide a bunch of stuff. So anyways, that's it. These are kind of neat, but I'm very much on the fence. Know that if you buy it, you're going to have to put some work into it and some additional equipment, like a 20 amp 12 volt power supply and 12 gauge wire bus for all these to connect to, and you're going to have to connect both sides. You got to figure out how you're going to do that. I don't think these connectors are going to work very well for that. These connectors would be fine for heavy gauge wire. Not long-term reliability, but you know, medium near term for a few years. I think you're going to end up with need a different solution for that as well. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you find it useful. Hope to see you next time.